Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to another episode of the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Mahara Wayman, and I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, none other than Jillian Johnsrud herself. Jillian's story is nothing short of awe-inspiring. Starting with a staggering $55,000 in debt, she defied the odds and achieved financial independence by the age of 32. She and her husband have experienced a life filled with adventure, from taking a dozen mini retirements to adopting 4 wonderful children, all while nurturing 2 biological ones. Their globetrotting adventures have taken them to 27 countries, and they now call the stunning Montana landscape right by Glacier National Park their home. But Jillian's journey isn't just about financial success. It's a tale of resilience in the face of adversity. Growing up in a small Montana town marked by financial hardship and a complicated home life, she overcame social anxiety and dyslexia to become the incredible individual she is today. Her determination to escape a challenging environment led her to the relentless pursuit of financial stability. And now she's on a mission to inspire others to carve out their own path to an extraordinary life. So in this episode, we are going to dive deep into her journey, exploring her experiences with bipolar disorder and the high priority she places on mental health. We'll also discuss financial independence, the joys of travel, the beauty of parenthood, and the importance of pursuing happiness. Honestly, her story is a shining example of how one can transform challenges into opportunities and adversity into triumph. So I'm not going to go on anymore. Jillian, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're joining us today.
Man, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. When did you start this traveling around the world? Because 27 countries, that's quite an accomplishment. What was the start of all of that?
Well, growing up, we didn't travel. Partly Montana is a really big state. It takes forever just to get out of the state. It's kind of like an island. From here to get to the east side of the state, it's like 12 hours for us. So it wasn't a big part of our childhood, but I'd always dreamed of travel. In high school, I'd buy travel books and I would highlight them and create little itineraries and bookmark every place that I would stay or eat. And so that was always kind of part of this dream, part of this what if we could do this? What if this could be part of our life? And we ended up having the opportunity to move overseas when my husband was in the military. And it was kind of like the carrot they dangled to get him to re-up. And I was like, yes, absolutely. That's what we're doing. And we just really, during that 4 years we lived there, we prioritized travel. So we traveled every month. I solo traveled. I took classes in different countries. I went back to school. I tried to kind of make up for lost time. And it was so helpful and so transformative to me that it has remained a big part of our life. It's how we kind of, as a family, it's how we have fun together. It's how we learn together, how we grow, how we develop teamwork. So even now with my kids, we travel about half the year.
Wow. So what did you learn about yourself when you first began to travel? Because I can only imagine, I've traveled a bit too, not as much. But I can only imagine that there were some moments of real ahas. Oh my God. And I'm wondering what they were for you, if you can think back to when you first started to travel the world.
It was incredibly stressful for me. Because I grew up in, like you mentioned, I grew up in this really small town where I knew everyone and I knew everything and everything was so comfortable and familiar. To be in places that felt so unfamiliar. One of my biggest ahas were just that people are different everywhere you go. There's a whole different perspective perspective. There's a whole different system and thought process and ways of relating. And just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's bad. There were a lot of times I would have to like sit with the discomfort and then be like, actually, this is kind of nice. Like, I feel uncomfortable, but I really see the benefit to this. And just having that exposure to all sorts of new types of history and culture and art was, yeah, it was really magical for me.
What an amazing opportunity to learn one of life's toughest lessons, which I think is it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So much of our lives, we shy away from being, I don't want to do anything wrong because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to upset anybody because that'll make everybody uncomfortable. I don't want to call so and so out at the family dinner because that'll make everybody uncomfortable. But for you to learn that it is, first of all, you can survive feeling uncomfortable and that there's nothing wrong with it. And seeing another, seeing other people live life completely differently from you and be happy and, around it is, I think that's a great opportunity for growth right there. So you traveled all over the world. And I didn't give you a heads up on this question, but any favorite memories from all of your travels that really stand out?
Favorite memories? I mean, maybe it's just my sense of humor, but I love the moments where everything fell apart. Like, I love the stories that were just a disaster and like a series of unfortunate events. Those are my favorite to reflect upon. And it's also taught me this additional lesson. The first one is that like all growth happens outside of your comfort zone. But the second lesson was kind of this lesson of perspective, that just because we're experiencing something very intensely right now doesn't mean we will always experience it that way. In fact, the things that are intensely uncomfortable or frustrating right now might be the best. They might be your favorite thing in 5 or 10 years. And so sometimes now, even when I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable, and I'm like, I'm not loving it at all, I think, but this might be the best story. This might be my favorite part when I think back on it. So.
Oh, that's so funny. As you were talking about traveling, and I asked you that question, what came to my mind when I was very little, I'm from Jamaica, and we went to Europe for a holiday. And at one point, we even lived in England. But when we were traveling Europe, the very first time I saw snow was on the Swiss Alps. We weren't in the Alps, we were down low driving, and my father pointed up, and he's like, "Sweetheart, guys, look, there's snow. That's snow." I'm like, "Snow, Daddy, snow, let's go, let's go." And he's like, "No." Are you like, "No." Like, we're a family of Jamaicans traveling on the bottom. We don't climb up the mountain to see the snow. But it's such a funny memory. And I remember I could hear my grandmother cackling with laughter in the back of the car, like as if, of course, I never got to see snow on that trip, but it's just one of those memories that I have. But I love that you've got that understanding that. And for those of you listening, I want you to imagine that you've had uncomfortable moments that now you can laugh about. It's such a great lesson recognizing that everything changes, including our perspective. And as we grow, some things shrink, right? Sometimes the memories shrink or the pain shrinks. Okay, so you do a lot of traveling and you continue to travel with your family. What would you say has been one of the biggest catalysts for transformation and understanding your authenticity, also known as badassery, on your journey so far? Because of course, this is what we talk about on the podcast. Can you share one or two moments with us where you went, wow, that was something, that was a lesson?
I would say my first big moment was, my mom was in her second marriage, and it was an unhealthy situation. It was an unhealthy environment. And I remember being like 11 or 12 and saying, this isn't working. Like, we can't stay here. We can't keep living here. Like, we have to get out. I don't care where we go. I don't care what we do, but this isn't like the solution. And my mom was a very practical woman and said, listen, Jillian, I can't raise 3 kids on my own. So We don't have a choice. And I went upstairs, laid in my bed, and I just cried hot tears, like feeling so hopeless in that moment, feeling like I had no agency. But I had this realization, oh, money gives you options. Like money gives you choices. And in that moment, I desperately wanted more options. I wanted more choices. I never wanted to be in this spot where I felt stuck in a place that I knew wasn't safe or healthy or helpful for me. And it really kind of set me on a different financial trajectory where I prioritized that financial security more than other comforts. Um, and growing up, like we didn't have a lot of money. I never assumed I would make a lot of money. We've never actually made a ton of money. And so it's tough. It's tough when you're poor to feel poor and to look poor. And there's this huge temptation when you get some money to negate or try to hide or pacify those emotions and that embarrassment and that shame. But I had to reckon with I'm earning enough that I can look rich or I can start to become rich, but I don't have enough to do both. So which one matters more? And that was that situation really kind of shaped my financial thinking.
Thank you for sharing. And really, what a what an interesting way to develop your financial safety. And I'm curious if you struggled to find the balance because by your own admission, it was you could see yourself going one way fully or maybe the other way fully. But what, if you can share with us, what do you think allowed you to find that balance where you kept your sanity, so to speak, and well, not even that, but you had, I think, a very well-rounded view of what financial stability looks like and how it was going to support you on moving forward in your dreams.
Yeah, initially I would say the first I got married when I was 19, even the first 4 or 5 years of our journey, there wasn't any balance. Like I craved that security and that safety more than any luxury the world could offer. If I had to pick between one or the other, like it wasn't self-control, it wasn't discipline, it was desire. I desired safety and security above everything else. So for us, the kind of balance was, what are other good things in the world? What are other good things in our life that we can enjoy that don't require a lot of money or don't require any money? And leaned into those and really said, okay, this is the season of life where we're going to go all in on that stuff, hoping that there'll be another season of life where we can enjoy the things that are expensive or that are luxurious. But this season, we're just going to focus on like enjoying the frugal things.
That's fantastic. How did the kids feel about that?
Well, we adopted our first son about 2 years in, um, and kids are funny in that, I think there's a brief moment of like wanting to kind of keep up with their peers, but at the heart of it, they want that connection and they want that love and they want that quality time and those experiences and those moments of connection. And in actuality, like most of those things aren't expensive. Those aren't luxury items. And so by prioritizing the experiences over the stuff, I think they got what they really desired.
Oh, I'm a mom. I have two kids. They're 20 and 25. And I just want to say hats off to you because I know it can, the pressure sometimes to just appease and okay, fine. Oh, okay, fine. I'll give you this. Okay, fine. But I think it's wonderful that you were able to really prioritize that. And truthfully, children will learn. They'll take their example from you. If you're comfortable and feeling very secure in your choices, they will be too. So I think that's fantastic. So you've done a lot of travel and you have found the balance between earning money and being stable and feeling secure. Moving forward in your world, what was something else that has happened that was kind of like maybe unexpected or offered you another big lesson in life and transformation?
Yeah, the second, also a painful moment. And for me, I said like all growth happens outside your comfort zone. Um, Unfortunately, as it works out, the moments in my life that feel the most transformative, that feel like they shifted my trajectory the most, were painful moments. Which is a helpful perspective for me now, like when I'm going through a painful moment, because I kind of almost have this anticipation of what's that counterbalance, what's that growth on the other side, because I've seen it happen so many times. But my second one was having that mental breakdown when I was about 27. I spent a month inpatient, and it was a terrifying, scary, awful moment. It was a really difficult thing to navigate. I wasn't equipped or prepared at all. But so many good things came out of it. And sometimes people will ask me now, like, was that breakdown the thing that transformed you? And I wish I could say it was, but it wasn't. Like, it didn't, the transformation didn't actually happen in that really painful month, but it set me on a path that allowed me to grow, and it freed me in a way, because up until that point, I so desperately wanted to do things the right way. I desperately wanted people to be happy with me and to be proud of me and to feel like I was following all the rules. And not for lack of effort, not for lack of effort, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be who other people really wanted me to be. And I had put so much effort into it that I could have a really honest conversation with myself and my husband. And I said, like, I've given this an honest try. Like, I don't think anyone could try harder than I've tried. And it clearly has not worked at all. It's a disaster, actually. It blew up my entire life, this pursuit of living up to other people's expectations. But it freed me up to, I came out of that and I said, okay, we're going to chart a whole new path now. Like that chapter's closed, and this new chapter going forward, I have to confront all of me, all of what makes me me, all of my life up into this point. I need to get reacquainted with those things that I've closed off and I've blocked off. And I have to be really honest with other people about who I am and who I'm not, what I can do, what I can't do, and really comfortable with the good and the bad and the scary and the beautiful parts of me. And I just kind of took this radical honesty moving forward. And I was really lucky in a way that people, the community I had around me at the time, were like, yeah, this is awesome. You're awesome. We've always loved you. We still love you. You're like, this is like 2.0. This is even better. And so they were so supportive and encouraging.
That's quite a story. And I'm quite moved because I think I see it so often in our world today with myself, with my clients, with my children, this idea of I'm not quite good enough. I'm not quite thin enough. I'm not quite pretty enough. I'm not quite liked enough. I'm not white enough, black enough, brown enough, tan enough, skinny enough, you name it, right? There's this horrible feeling of I've got to be better. And I just, I can picture this young woman because 27, 26, you're still pretty young. And I love that your support system was there, but I'm curious, how how does one go about reconnecting with themselves when you've had 27 years or 25 years plus of purposely being unconnected? Was this a case of did you journal? Did you get a coach? Did you have therapy? Like, how does one say, hey, everybody, I'm just taking a little bit of a break from the me that you know, and I'm going to get to know the me that I don't know. So just I'll come back in 6 months, or I'll come back in 6 weeks or 6 days. So what were some of the things that you did to help you discover the real you?
Yeah, the bummer of it was it's a long process, and it's a continual, steady, persistent work. I wish I had like, and here's what I did for 1 week, and then I was totally me and awesome. But it was layer after layer after layer. And so the first thing I did coming out, I had received the bipolar diagnosis during that month, which is, if you've ever had that diagnosis or you know someone who has, it can be very scary. It can be very overwhelming. Most people's assumptions are terrifying, and frequently incorrect. And so you kind of get all of this like, well, I saw a character on TV that did this. Like, are you that person? And I'm like, oh God, I don't think I'm that person. I don't know though. And so like the week after I came out, I was like, in this radical honesty, the only way I'm going to be able to move through this is by being honest and open. And I started blogging about it every week. I wrote about all of the experience, coming to terms with it, reorienting who I am, who I'm not, the parts of the label that did seem to fit and the parts that didn't, all of the struggles with med compliance and manic episodes and depressed episodes, and just being ridiculously transparent with something that most people are incredibly closeted about. It's something that even now, because that's been like 15 years, I know people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s who've been diagnosed for 10 or 20 years and have never told anyone. They will never tell their coworkers. They will never tell their friends. They will never talk about it online. They're so afraid of the shame and the judgment and the stigma and the assumptions. They're worried about their career. They're worried about their relationships. Like, it's something that you feel a desperate intensity to hide, and being scared to be found out. And I was just like, nope, that doesn't work for me. Like, I can't do that anymore. So I'm going to go way on the opposite end and be incredibly open, and getting to practice that openness and that honesty in something that's so taboo and that's so shameful for most people really helped me slowly connect to these other parts of my life that felt taboo and shameful.
Wow. I'm curious if you've seen in the 15 years in the States, has there been a progression where there is more openness and more discussion? Or do you find that it's as taboo as it was 20 years ago or 15 years ago when you first went in?
I feel like we've made a tremendous amount of progress for anxiety and depression. I see that talked about really openly. I would say bipolar and schizophrenia are still very taboo. And one thing that sometimes I do a random PSA online on my social accounts, that 2.5% of people are diagnosed bipolar. They think the number of people that are actually bipolar is maybe double that, but 2.5% are diagnosed. And so I encourage people, like, think about your Facebook friends. If you have 200 Facebook friends, that's 5 people that have been diagnosed. Do you know who those 5 people are? If you have 400 Facebook friends, that's 10 people. Are there 10 people that you know that are open about being bipolar? And if not, there's a lot of good reasons that they're not. But there's ways that we can become safer people for those with bipolar to come out too, and to have 1 or 2 people they can share this deep, dark secret with.
Such an important lesson for anybody that has anything of shame, especially if it's a mental illness, is to recognize, number one, you're not alone, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. Mental health, mental illness is an illness, and I'm pleased to see that my children's generation can talk about things, and they have educated me. My youngest is actually in 3rd year psychology, excuse. So she lectures me weekly on things that she's learning, and I'm fascinated. And I am happy to see that more and more people are talking about it, but it breaks my heart when I hear stories of so many people, to your point, that are still feeling such immense shame. A lot of my clients have shame about other things, lifetime, things that happen in childhood that prompt all of these limiting beliefs. And I often talk to them about, what's the story that you're telling the world? And is it actually true? So I'm sure that you've asked yourself those questions many times. So I'm glad that you had such great support, and that you, again, in this instance, took this as an opportunity to sort of start fresh and give yourself some grace to sort of move forward with whatever it was that you needed. I love that.
There is a caveat I'll say, in that me being able to be open then or now, I think there is a degree of privilege in that.
So we're going to take a short break right now, but I'll be back with my guest within 60 seconds. Ladies, unlock your inner badass and transform your life with my monthly subscription workshop. For just $47 a month, you'll have exclusive access to work closely with me, Mahara Wayman, as we dive deep into all things badass, from personal development to conquering your goals. Imagine waking up every day with confidence, purpose, and a smile that radiates your newfound strength. Take advantage of this badass opportunity and join us today at www.mindfulnesswithmahara.com and start your journey toward a happier, more confident you. Smile when no one is looking. You've earned it.
For me to be open then and now, there is a certain degree of privilege in that there is real risk for a lot of people to be open. And not that I don't experience that risk, I just don't care as much. Like, if someone doesn't want to hire me, if someone doesn't want to work with me, if someone doesn't want to collaborate with me, if someone doesn't want to be friends with me, I'm like, it's a big world. I will be fine. But, every time I post, people will DM me and say, I'm a physician. I've never told anyone I can't. It's too detrimental to my career. Like, I won't get promoted. I could get fired. Like, no one will trust me. No one will respect me. I will constantly be questioned. I won't get promoted. And so there is still a very real stigma. And you're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of crap. Like, this is like, and you can totally cut this out. This is such a random, difficult story, but I was hanging out with a bunch of friends in Florida, and someone invited a friend to join us for the evening and stay over at our Airbnb. And I'm really open about my bipolar. So I was talking about, like, I've made some like nutritional changes, and I think this is going to help, and inflammation, and yada, 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 like a real casual, light conversation. And this acquaintance that I've just met was like, so my therapist feels like I should talk about this more. Someone with bipolar tried to murder me last year, and I was severely injured. And I was like, oh shit. I don't know how to handle this conversation. Like, she had tremendous PTSD. This was a really difficult thing for her to share, but part of me in my head is like, does she think I might murder her? Like, should I say this? Like, just so you know, like, I haven't murdered anyone. I've never thought about murdering someone. Like, we're staying in an Airbnb together. I'm like, I don't think my friends think that I would murder them, but like, should I be candid about, like, I don't know. I don't know how to handle this. I felt so out of my depth and bad for her, and, wanting to make the situation better and supportive for her, because it was so traumatic. But at the same time, like, yeah, there's a cost to being open. Like, all of a sudden, all of your friends might be like, I wonder if Jillian's going to murder me tonight. And you have to like navigate that.
That's like the worst case scenario.
I don't even know if that was the worst experience I've had of what people have shared with me in my openness, but you'll get some stuff.
But I think also for this woman,
oh yeah,
that's
yeah,
pretty scary, especially if it takes her
horrifying.
Yeah,
horrifying. Like, it's such an awful thing to work through. And honestly, a perfect example of the failure of the medical and mental health state of the US specifically. It never should have gotten to that point. There should have been so many more safety nets to help the attempted murderer, that the system obviously failed that person horribly.
Okay, so tell us what you do today.
My life is interesting. So we travel about half the year. I have a podcast called Retire Often, where I talk to people about their mini retirement stories. And I'm a financial coach. I kind of coach people through those work transitions, either into early retirement or mini retirement. But going through that breakdown and that diagnosis, it did alter my financial trajectory again, because I had this realization of like, maybe I'm not cut out for 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, year after year after year. Like, I'm just not built that way. And that was one of those, like, accepting who I am and coming to terms with it. And then instead of killing myself to try to fit into someone else's mold and someone else's idea, just saying, we got to start from scratch. Like, what actually does work and what doesn't work for me. So being self-employed works for me, and it works through depression and through mania. I can do 3 or 4 hours one week, and I can do 30 another week when I'm in a different mental space, and depending how much creative energy I have, my work can accommodate that instead of the other way around.
I love that you have another realization from your life is that you work best as a self-employed person, and you can gauge your energy level and your capacity from 1 month or 1 week to the next. What's one of the things that you love most about being outside of the you pick your own hours, but the actual work that you do? What are some of the things that you love most about the work that you do when you help others with their finances, for example?
I think this may be true of some some coaches or therapists or things like that. But growing up, I always had lots of ideas. Like, I was always a very observant, kind of hyper vigilant child. And I was always like, but if we did it this way, or if we did it that way, or maybe here's how people could grow or how they could change. And everyone around me was like, nope, not interested in that. And so it was like a deep frustration, like a deep, just desperately wanting that for myself, but people around me. And coaching is incredibly satisfying for me to see people show up who like want to change and want to grow. And instead of like my insights and my observations being annoying or pushy or not requested, having this explicit consent of, yes, please speak into my life. Please give me some guidance, make some observations. I've always been a very observant person. Most of my life, it got me into trouble, because it turns out just because you have the superpower to observe something does not mean that that person wants you to announce it to them or to people around them. Like, generally, it's unwelcomed. So, I always tell people, like, the thing that you're best at, that deepest strength, when it comes out in kind of inappropriate places, it's so painful when it's criticized. It's so painful when people misunderstand it. But when you can channel it into a place where it's not only like praised, but appreciated, and you see the impact it's making, it's so deeply satisfying. It's so meaningful. And honestly, I think a lot of people, the thing that they say, this is like the annoying quality about me, is probably the other side of their superpower. It's probably secretly one of their greatest strengths, and they just haven't found the right way to channel it for good.
I love that you brought that up, because truly one of my questions was going to be, what is your superpower? And you've said already that it's your ability to observe. And I think your point is so on point. This idea that your superpower, before you realize it, or when you're very young, it may come out in places that are inappropriate. I couldn't help but draw a correlation to my own story. I'm the youngest of four. I'm a Sagittarius and I love to be the center of attention. And I grew up talking nonstop. And I recall my siblings always complaining, Mommy, make her shut up. Be quiet. Oh my God, shut up. Like, what is wrong with you? Stop talking. Mommy, make her stop. And there came a time when I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't, as a young adult, I would shy away from speaking my truth or asking a question because I could just hear everybody telling me to shut up. And it was one of the first things I had to, as a very recently in the last few years, really recognize and forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I shouldn't talk. And now I run a podcast and I talk to clients all the time. And I'm like you, I'm very observant. My superpower is I'm a great listener. So I can hear things that haven't been said. But I had to give myself permission to develop it as an adult because I'd spent my teenage years and young adult years suppressing it because I didn't want to hear that voice anymore saying, shut up. You talk too much. Shut up.
Yeah. And it
Interesting.
takes, oh, go ahead. Sorry. I think it takes a little bit of trial and error to find the place where it's appreciated and to find the place where it's productive. Me and my husband used to joke years ago that like I'm a betterer. I love to make things better. I'm really good at making things better. Any situation, any context. It's an energy I have, and I have too much of it. And there was one point in our marriage where he was like, Jillian, I am fully optimized. I can't, our family is fully optimized. Like, you can't pour this energy into us anymore. We need to find a new outlet because when it's spread out, when it's diffused among a lot of different projects and people, it is like the warm sunshine that just brings growth and life. But when you focus it down on me, it is like a laser that burns me. And so even now, like whenever he starts to feel my betterer energy hanging out too much around the house, he's like, what other projects you've been thinking about? Are you thinking about maybe increasing your client load? Like how can we spread this out a bit? But I worked at my last like 9 to 5 job I had. During the interview, I was like, okay, guys, I'm a betterer. And they're like, a what? I'm like, I'm a betterer. Whatever you have, I'll make it better. Your systems, your process, your marketing, your branding, any of it, I'll make it better. I just love to improve things. And they were like, yeah, that's amazing. We really need someone around here like that. And what they should have said is, we know there's problems and we will never, under any circumstance, do anything to change them, no matter the solution you bring us. And I spent the most frustrating next 2 years trying to have that better energy appreciated or see it work, and to have it just like, yeah, kind of like, shut up, knock it off. We're not doing anything. Like, why are you being like this? And so it takes some trial and error to be like, where this energy that I have like a surplus of, where is it needed? Where is it wanted? Where is it useful? And how can I kind of overcome maybe the shame that I've experienced around it?
It's all part of being a badass, right? It's all part of going, okay, you know what? This is how I'm kind of acting, or this is what I need, but I also need to have this or do this. So I say it all the time on the show, but really being a badass is about really accepting who you are. And I love that you have come to this place because I can just see it in your eyes. Like, you've got such a beautiful energy about you, even when you talk about the tough things. And I really do appreciate that. So you are a financial planner, financial
No,
coach?
yeah, coach, I'm not a planner in the traditional sense of, I'm not selling you anything. I'm not selling you insurance or investments or stupid, worthless products. And I also don't have like, here's the 8 parts of your financial life that we need to get organized. I listen to where people want to go, what they want their life to look like. And then we figure out, what are the missing pieces that are holding that back? Is it, the actual finances? Is it how you feel about your money? Is it how you're thinking about your money? Is it, all these different things? And there might be 20 things. And sometimes people are really, really good at a couple of those. And there's just one or two that are like making everything stuck. And so my process is more like looking at all the information, being observant and saying, okay, here's I think the two sticking points. And if we kind of unlock those two things, you'll make a massive amount of progress. Like, so I never go over things that people don't need help with. Like if you've already mastered it, I'm like, fantastic. If you understand your investments, fantastic. If you understand your budget, fantastic. If like you have a debt pay down plan, awesome. We're not going to waste any time or energy on that. Like we're just going to go to the thing that's holding you back.
So important that we recognize that even though we may have a thing or five things, we also have lots of other beautiful things that are working well. And I think it's really great that you brought that up, because sometimes when people look for help, what I've experienced personally and as a coach is we get mired in what we don't have and what I'm doing wrong and those feelings. And part of what I do with my clients is help them to recognize all the other great stuff, just like you said, because we want to find a balance, right? Life isn't all about the negative. It's not all about the positive. It's about being real, whatever that is to you, wherever you're at. So sounds amazing. Sounds beautiful. So I asked already, you've answered what your superpower is. I know the answer, I think, to this, but why? What makes you badass?
I think part of it is I do truly feel comfortable with the good and the bad. I know what both of those are, and neither of them bother me. Like even with my employees and with my kids, one of the things I do frequently is say, okay, I want you to think about all of my weaknesses, and I want you to tell me the three that you would love me to fix the most. And I'm not nervous or concerned. Like some people, especially with those that they view as below them, are like, you're in no position to criticize me, or you're in no position to tell me like how I need to improve. Because the thing is, I know all 50 of my weaknesses. There is nothing you could say that would go, I don't see that at all. Like I am deeply acquainted with those weaknesses. What I don't know though is which three are impacting them the most. What three of my weaknesses are holding back their best work and their best potential? Or for my kids, like what three of my weaknesses are holding back their joy or their experiencing my love or their growth? I know I've got lots of weaknesses, but like, what's the three that actually matter to them? Because all the other ones are probably irrelevant. Like it's just they have no impact on them one way or the other. So why waste my time and my energy and focus working on something that isn't negatively impacting anyone? So I think just having that self-awareness and being really comfortable with the bad stuff, comfortable with the good stuff. And it makes me confident in kind of a weird way, not in that like I think I'm awesome at everything, but I can walk into any room and feel like I belong because I know myself. And I'm not intimidated by other people that have achieved different things because I don't think we're all the same. Like I'm not running their race and they're not running mine. It's not a competition. So I think that comfort with the light and the dark is super helpful for me.
I love the way that you put that. And, I say this all the time. I personally believe that we're spiritual beings having a human existence. And that means that there is tough things and easy things, and there's good times and bad times, and there's traits and there's challenges and there's beautiful things. What a gift to be able to stand in your skin and feel that way. And yeah, you are absolutely badass. I absolutely 100% agree with you. And it's something that we all aspire to, this idea of feeling comfortable with the good and the bad. And I put that in quotation marks because I don't really think anything is bad, but it does speak to our level of comfort. And it does speak to what's important to us and or our children and or our loved ones. I think the question is very brave because it does speak a lot to judgments and assumptions, right? Two things that as humans, we many of us struggle with. Jillian, I could just sit here and chat with you all afternoon, but that's not the way to run the podcast. I am going to say, though, that I have very much enjoyed getting to know you better. And for those of you that are listening, check out the show notes. I will drop as much information as she will give me to allow you to connect with her directly, because she's pretty darn special. Thank you again for being on the show with us today. I'll see you next week on The Art of Badassery. Thank you for tuning in to The Art of Badassery. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights to help unleash your inner badass. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave a rating or review on your favorite platform. Your feedback not only helps me improve the show, but it also helps others like yourself discover the podcast. Until next time, keep embracing your authenticity and living life on your terms. Here's to you.